Order. Questions to the Prime Minister. Mr. Tim Yeo.
Number one.
Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others, and in addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Tim Yeo.
Does my right honourable friend recall the general election of 1983? A Conservative landslide win in which I and 100 other Conservatives were elected for the first time. Is he aware that at that time unemployment was 3 million and today it is 2 million? Inflation was 8% and today it's under 2%. The workforce was 24 million and today it's 30 million. Women in the workforce were 9 million and today are 14 million. Does he agree that these comparisons, coupled with the trump card that he and Baroness Thatcher shared in the form of a left-wing opposition leader who's lost control of his own party, puts Britain on course for another Conservative landslide?
Well, I'm very grateful to my right honourable friend. I wasn't a voter in 1983, but it is true that this government is cutting unemployment, and it's also true that every Labour government always puts up unemployment. What we can see in his own constituency is the claimant count has fallen by 55% since the last election. But it does speak to a bigger picture, which is this government has created 1,000 jobs for every day that it's been in office. And we all remember the prediction of the leader of the Labour Party that our plans would cost 1 million jobs. With unemployment tumbling, perhaps today is the day he should apologise.
Mr. Speaker, an hour ago we learned that linked to the HSBC tax avoidance scandal are 7 Tory donors, including a former treasurer of the Tory party, who between them have given nearly £5 million to the Conservative Party. How can the Prime Minister explain the revolving door between Tory Party HQ and the Swiss branch of HSBC?
I saw this list just before coming to Prime Minister's questions, and one of the people named is the Labour donor Lord Paul, who funded Gordon Brown's election campaign. I am very clear. People should pay their taxes in our country, and no government has been tougher than this one in chasing down tax evasion and tax avoidance.
Let's talk about the difference between him and me. None of these people have given a penny on my watch, and he's up to his neck in this. Now let's take Stanley Fink, who gave £3 million to the Conservative Party. He actually appointed him as treasurer of the Tory party and gave him a peerage for good measure. So now can he explain what steps he's going to take to find out about the tax avoidance activities of Lord Fink?
I will tell him, Mr. Speaker, about the difference between him and me. When people donate to the Conservative Party, they don't pick the candidates, they don't choose the policies, they don't elect the leader. When the trade unions fund the Labour Party, they pay for the candidates, they pay for the policies, and the only reason he is sitting there is because a bunch of trade union leaders decided he was more left-wing than his brother.
He can't get away from it. He's a dodgy Prime Minister surrounded by dodgy donors. Now, he didn't just take the money. He didn't...
It has always to be said, the questions will be heard and the answers will be heard, because this is a democratic chamber, and I don't mind how long it takes, they will be heard. Ed Miliband.
And he didn't just take the money. He appointed the man who was head of HSBC as a minister. Mr. Speaker, it was in the public domain in September 2010 that HSBC was enabling tax avoidance on an industrial scale. Are we seriously expected to believe that when he made Stephen Green a minister 4 months later, he had no idea about these allegations?
Well, I'm I'm glad he's brought up the issue of Stephen Green, who is a trade minister in this government. This is the same Stephen Green who Gordon Brown appointed as the head of his Business Advisory Council. This is the same Stephen Green who Labour welcomed as a trade minister into the government. And it's the same Stephen Green who the Shadow Business Secretary, looking a bit coy today, invited on a trade mission as late as 2013. We know what happens, Mr. Speaker. Every week he gets more desperate because he can't talk about the economy, he can't talk about unemployment, so he comes here with fiction after fiction. Let me deal, while I've got a moment, with the fiction we had last week. He came here, and if you remember, he talked about something called intermediary tax relief. And it turns out, Mr. Speaker, as long as it takes,
I said the questions must be heard. The responses must be heard. The Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, the Labour leader asked me 6 times about the tax treatment of hedge funds. Now, it turns out that the treatment he's complaining about was introduced in the autumn of 1997 by a Labour government. It further turns out that it was extended in 2007. Now, who was in power in 2007? Labour. Who was the city minister in 2007? I think we'll find it was Ed somebody.
Ed Miliband.
Mr. Speaker, I know the Prime Minister doesn't care. I know the Prime Minister doesn't care about tax avoidance, but this day of all days, he is going to be held accountable for answering the question. Right. Now, he is pleading ignorance as to what was happening with Stephen Green. But today we discover the minister in charge issued a press release in November 2011 which referred to the investigation into the HSBC Geneva account holders. Does the Prime Minister expect us to believe that in Stephen Green's 3 years as a minister, he never had a conversation with him about what was happening at HSBC?
Prime Minister.
Why did Labour welcome Stephen Green as a trade minister? Why were they still booking meetings with him in 2013? My responsibility is the tax laws of this country, and no one has been tougher. Let me remind him about what we found. Hedge funds cutting their taxes by flipping currencies, allowed under Labour, banned under the Tories. Foreigners not paying stamp duty, allowed under Labour, banned under the Tories. Banks not paying tax on all their profits, allowed under Labour, banned by the Tories. Those two in the Treasury were the friends of the tax dodger, were the friend of the hard-working taxpayer.
He's banged to rights, just like his donors. And doesn't this all sound familiar? The Prime Minister appoints someone to a senior job in government. There are public allegations, but he doesn't ask the questions. He turns a blind eye. Isn't this just the behaviour we saw with Andy Coulson?
It is, Mr. Speaker, desperate stuff, because they can't talk about the economy because it's growing. They can't talk about unemployment because it's falling. They can't talk about their health policy because it's collapsing. What have we seen this week? He can't even go in front of a business audience because they've offended every business in the country. He can't go to Scotland because he's toxic. They can't talk to women because they've got a pink bus touring the country. They've even offended Britain's nuns. No wonder people look at Labour and say they haven't got a prayer.
He took the money. He gave a job to the head of HSBC, and he lets the tax avoiders get away with it. There's something rotten at the heart of the Conservative Party, and it's him.
For 13 years, they sat in the Treasury. They did nothing about tax transparency, nothing about tax dodging, nothing about tax avoidance. This government has been tougher than any previous government. That's why they're desperate. That's why they're losing.
Mr. Connor Burns.
Thank you.
Order. Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
It's gone pink.
At the weekend, graduates of Bournemouth University and the Arts University Bournemouth enjoyed yet another year of success at the BAFTAs. Last week, Bournemouth was named as having the fastest growing digital economy in the United Kingdom. Would my right honourable friend agree with me that the talent of our people, combined with the long-term economic plan, is why it is that Britain remains a world leader in the creative industries?
Well, my honourable friend is absolutely right. Our creative industries are a vital part of our economy and our country, and when we look at film and television and you see the great results at the BAFTAs, the high hopes we have for the Oscars, British television and British film conquering the world, Bournemouth University plays a very important part because its training of some of our digital effects specialists, because of many of our creative people, is an absolutely key part of this vital and growing industry.
Cathy Jameson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week at Prime Minister's Questions, I warned the Prime Minister about falling wages. This week he said that Britain needs a pay rise. So I'm glad to see that he's waking up to reality. But would you now agree with me that the people who most need that pay rise are the families who've lost out £1,600 a year under his government, and not those at the top who he's given the massive tax cuts?
Prime Minister.
Well, what the lady will find, honourable lady will find, is right now it is good that wages in the public sector and in the private sector are growing ahead of inflation. And of course, because we've raised to £10,000 the amount of money you can earn before you start paying taxes, as a result, people are better off. In Scotland, there are 175,000 more people in work today than when I became Prime Minister. So as a result of growth in the jobs market, growth in wages, cuts in taxes, increase in minimum wages, things are getting better for families in Scotland.
Mr. Ian Swale.
Mr. Speaker, for years the supermarket chain Aldi have been sitting on an empty supermarket that they acquired in the centre of Eston in my constituency. Does the Prime Minister agree that the supermarket chain should be forced to release assets that they don't need rather than allow them to be a blight on the community?
Minister.
Well, I think what we need to see is successful development go ahead and the use of these brownfield sites, and if they can't be used for retail, then they could be made available for other uses. And one of the changes we've made is to liberalise the use classes in planning so that we don't have long-term planning blight of development not going ahead in towns and cities where houses and jobs and investment are needed.
Mr. Paul Blomfield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given the Prime Minister's newfound concern that employers should give their staff decent pay rises, can he explain why he didn't apply that principle to his own government when they decided not to implement the recommended 1% pay increase for NHS staff?
Actually, what we've done with NHS staff is make sure that the lowest paid people in the NHS are getting a pay rise. And of course, in the NHS, you have progression pay, so everyone will get at least a 1% rise, but many people, because of progression, will get a 2%, 3% or 4% pay rise. Alongside that pay rise, they'll be paying less in tax. The council tax in many areas has been frozen. Diesel and petrol prices are coming down, and people can see that standards of living are rising because we got a long-term economic plan and we're sticking to it.
Mr. Speaker, more than ever before, businesses, students and commuters in Hampshire use the trains to get around, but they're increasingly frustrated that our trains are stuck in the analogue age. Access to the internet can be really difficult and very limited. Can my right honourable friend consider this important issue and see what the government could do to help commuters and others get access to Wi-Fi on our trains?
Prime Minister.
I think my right honourable friend is absolutely right to raise this. It's vital for businesses and for individuals to be able to access Wi-Fi and do their work and all other contacts while they're on trains. And I'm pleased to announce plans that will see the rollout of free Wi-Fi on trains across the United Kingdom from 2017. The government will invest nearly £50 million to ensure that rail passengers are better connected. Passengers that make over 500 million journeys every year with the 4 rail operators, TSGN, South Eastern, Chiltern and Arriva Trains Wales, will all benefit from this investment.
Mr. Peter Hain.
The Motability car that my severely disabled constituent Mark Francis has had for 11 years is being taken from him in 2 weeks. Born with hereditary spastic paraplegia, unable to walk without crutches or sticks, he is deteriorating sadly by the week. I've been told his case will be reconsidered, and yet the Department for Work and Pensions is punitively and callously snatching it from him on the 25th of February. Will the Prime Minister immediately rectify this heartless and disgraceful injustice?
As ever, I'm very happy to look at the individual case that the Right Honourable Gentleman raises. Of course, with the replacement of the disability living allowance with the personal independence payments, actually the most disabled people will be getting more money and more assistance rather than less. But as I say, I'll happily look at the case.
Mr. Peter Lilly.
Given the widespread cynicism about politicians' promises and claims, will my right honourable friend remind people, however long it takes, that this government has presided over the creation of more than 2 million additional private sector jobs, which is far, far more than we ever promised. And doesn't that discredit the claims of the opposition that our efforts to cut the deficit would destroy jobs?
My right honourable friend is absolutely right. The figures are clear. We have created 2 million additional private sector jobs, and if you look at the extra number of people in work, public and private sector combined, it is 1.75 million more people. Now, behind those statistics are families who've now got a pay packet and a job and the chance to have a more secure future. And all of this at a time when the Leader of the Opposition was very clear. He warned that our policies would cost 1 million jobs. He was 1,000,000% wrong. And it's time they withdrew what they said and apologised for all those statements.
Speaker, in November 2012, HMRC, in evidence to the Public Accounts Committee, said there were a dozen prosecutions in train in relation to the HSBC caseload. None of them have come to court yet. Can he explain to us why that is the case?
Prime Minister.
Well, first of all, on prosecutions for tax evasion, the figures are they've actually gone up fivefold under this government since 2010. 2,650 cases, leading to hundreds of years of imprisonment taken as a whole. That's what's happened. But there is an important point here, which is in our country, the Tax Collection Agency, HMRC, is independent of government, independent of ministers, and it has to raise the taxes and carry out the investigations and order the prosecutions. And it's very important in a free country that ministers are not given the details of who is being investigated and what the prosecutions are. Now, this doesn't happen in other countries, and we have a word for it. It's called corruption. But it seems to be the path suggested by the party opposite.
Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituent.
The honourable gentleman is entitled to be heard with courtesy. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituents in Montgomeryshire are not able to see a GP as quickly as they should. Does the Prime Minister agree that we need to train more GPs to take forward our plans for surgeries to be open 7 days a week and in the evenings? And will he press for similar hours of openings to be available to my constituents in Wales?
Well, I will certainly press for that change, because we've now got 1,000 more GPs operating in England. We've made the commitment that we're going to have 7-day opening, 8 in the morning till 8 in the evening. That's already available now to some 4 million people. We're going to spread that across the country, and I would urge the NHS in Wales, even at this late stage, and the Labour government in Wales, more to the point, because it's their decision to cut the NHS that has landed the NHS in Wales with these difficulties, to reverse that policy and look at how we can expand access to GPs in Wales, because it's the right policy.
John Mann.
For anti-Semitism was opened by the Archbishop of Canterbury, Mr. Speaker, and others. Would the Prime Minister be prepared to meet a group from that committee? Because while the report is a work plan for the next Parliament, the issue of security of synagogues and other Jewish communal buildings is too urgent to wait until May.
Well, first of all, can I commend the honourable gentleman for the work that he does in fighting anti-Semitism, and I know he takes a very prominent role both inside this House and outside the House with the work that he does. It is very vital to reassure Jewish communities at this time, particularly after the heightened tensions because of what happened in Paris and other issues. I've met with the Jewish Leadership Council. I regularly discuss with them the issues. We do make available support. I've made sure that the police have contacted all the relevant organisations to try and work with them, but I'm very happy, as ever, to sit down with members of Parliament and hear their views too.
Mr. Andrew Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Local enterprise partnerships covering the Harrogate district have awarded 14 grants from the Business Growth Fund totalling over £1.7 million. This has led to the creation of 158 jobs, many in manufacturing, part of the 60% fallen unemployment that we've seen locally. Will the Prime Minister commit to further investment in northern manufacturing as it's key to rebalancing our economy?
Well, I'm very glad that the honourable gentleman sees that there is a manufacturing revival taking place in Britain. We've seen manufacturing investment and manufacturing output increase. That is happening in all the regions of our country, which is worthwhile. We will be playing our part by investing £10 million in the development of the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre in South Yorkshire. I think these and other of the catapults can make a real difference in terms of backing the revival of manufacturing in our country.
Michael Connaughton.
Very much. As I remarked earlier, Mr. Speaker, I've been reading the report of the Statistics Authority. The fact is that the last government, the Labour government, prosecuted more companies for corporate tax evasion than this government has done. It's a major scandal in this country that many companies who make money in our consumers here do not pay their tax in this country. What is he doing to plug these gaps?
Well, what this government has done is, when we chaired the G8, we put at the head of the agenda the issue of tax transparency and tax evasion and aggressive tax avoidance, and we now have 90 countries automatically sharing their tax information, including Switzerland. So the events that we're discussing, events which, by the way, and allegations of crimes that all took place when Labour were in power, were this to happen again, we wouldn't have this situation, because we have the automatic transparent exchange of tax information, something this government put on the agenda, and the party opposite only started talking about it after we did that.
Mr. Richard Drax.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. According to a recent survey of 40,000 patients carried out by Care Quality Commission, the accident and emergency service at our county hospital in Dorchester is the #1 in the country. Would my right honourable friend praise all the staff who work there and reassure the hospital that as it prepares to integrate its services for South, West and North Dorset, the money will follow that good work?
Prime Minister.
Well, I certainly join my honourable friend in congratulating the Dorset County Hospital NHS Foundation Trust. I think their work shows what can be done when we better integrate health and social care, and also when we look at how we can treat frail elderly people in the community, often people who have more than one difficult conditions that need treatment. The best place for them is often not A&E, but treating them in community hospitals and looking after their ailments and helping them to do better at home. That is what we should be focused on. That's what the Simon Stevens plan is for the NHS, and it's a plan that we've already come up with the money to get it well underway.
Mrs. Sharon Hodgson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Did the Prime Minister have conversations with Lord Green about tax avoidance at HSBC? And if not...
Order. I said a moment ago that the honourable gentleman from Montgomeryshire had a right to be heard with courtesy. The honourable lady has a similar right to be heard with courtesy. And be in no doubt, she will be heard with courtesy. Mrs. Sharon Hodgson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to know if the Prime Minister has had conversations with Lord Green about tax avoidance at HSBC, and if not, why not?
When I appointed Stephen Green, every proper process was followed. I consulted the Cabinet Secretary, I consulted the Director for Propriety and Ethics, and of course the House of Lords Appointments Commission now looks at someone's individual tax affairs before giving them a peerage. I made the appointment, it was welcomed by Labour, and 3 years later they were still holding meetings with him.
Aaron Lumley.
Is a mother of two from Redditch who works hard to give her children the best start in life. What does my right honourable friend think she needs? Measures to reward those who work hard, get on and do the right thing, or cheap patronising pink stunts?
I think what Britain's families need to get on most of all is the security of a good school place, and we're providing them, the security of a good job, and we're providing them, and the security of a safe community, and we're providing them. But I have to say, Labour's campaign, the wheels, I would say the wheels are falling off the wagon, but I think the wheels are falling off the bus. We now know, though, it's not going to be driven by anyone on the front bench. Surprise, surprise, it's going to be driven by Unite.
The Prime Minister may have been briefed that the Care Quality Commission published its report on Hillingdon Hospital, my local hospital, yesterday. It found that we have an extremely dedicated, hard-working professional staff team, but patient safety is being put at risk by critical staff shortages, and the fabric of a building which was described by a consultant in the report as like something out of the third world. Will the Prime Minister meet with me, and indeed my parliamentary colleagues in Hillingdon, to look at how we can secure the funds to make our constituents safe?
Minister.
Well, what I'd say to the honourable gentleman is, look, the CQC's investigations and findings are clearly disappointing, but it does seem as if the Trust is taking immediate steps to address the issues that have been raised, raising standards around infection control and cleanliness, enhanced and more frequent training, and recruiting more permanent staff. But I think this does go to a bigger point, which is for years in our NHS, when there was a problem with the hospital, it was swept under the carpet rather than properly examined and inspected, and if necessary put into special measures and then corrected. That is now what is happening in our health service, and that is all to the good. And it's important to say this on the day when Sir Robert Francis has come out with his report about how important it is that we listen to whistleblowers in the NHS. And unlike the party opposite, we are determined that we will listen to the Francis report and to whistleblowers. I'll certainly make sure that the Health Secretary meets with his colleagues and others in Hillingdon to make sure that this hospital gets the attention it deserves.
Sir Peter Tapsell.
May I put it to the Prime Minister that from President Monroe onwards, it has been generally acknowledged by leaders of great powers that for the avoidance of war, it is often wise to acknowledge the concept of traditional spheres of authority and power, and that while Ukraine is of absolutely no significant strategic importance to Britain, Greece most certainly is, and that unless Western statesmen show rather greater skills than they have in recent years, Greece is going to pass into the Russian sphere of influence without a shot being fired.
Prime Minister.
Well, it's difficult to answer the Father of the House without a long historical, not hysterical, historical exegesis, but I would argue when it comes to Ukraine, it does matter on our continent of Europe to make sure that we don't reward aggression and brutality with appeasement. That would be wrong. And that is why it's right to have the sanctions in place. It's right to keep the European Union and America together on this issue. And it is right to stand up to President Putin. On the issue of Greece, of course, there is a British interest here, which is we want stability and growth on the continent of Europe. The Eurozone crisis has held back that growth and that stability, and so we want those concerned to come to a reasonable agreement so that Europe can move forward. It's good that the British economy is growing and jobs are being generated, but we have to recognise that our largest market at the moment is still relatively stagnant, and the situation in Greece doesn't help that.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, there are adverts in Newcastle exhorting my constituents to report benefits fraudsters. So can I ask him why he feels why he doesn't feel as strongly about tax avoidance? Will he report, did he have a conversation with Lord Green about tax avoidance?
I do feel strongly about tax evasion and aggressive tax avoidance. Let me tell you, when it comes to income tax, some of the things people used to get away with. Under Labour, people avoided paying tax by calling their salary from their company a loan. Allowed under Labour, banned under the Tories. Businesses could avoid paying tax by paying employees through trust. Allowed by Labour, banned by the Tories. Time and time again, it's this government that's come along and cracked down on tax evasion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm a proud Yorkshireman, and when I come to London, I'm proud that the glass pods on the London Eye are made by Nova Glaze in Lockwood in my patch. I'm proud that the red carpet used for the royal wedding at Westminster Abbey was made in Huddersfield. And I'm proud that the upholstery on Boris's Routemaster buses was made in Meltham in my patch as well. I wonder if they do upholstery for pink vans, by the way. And there was more good news last week with £2.9 million. Very shortly.
One sentence,
yes.
A question, not a statement,
yes.
A question. One sentence.
And Mr. Speaker, tomorrow I'm meeting local manufacturers at the award-winning Huddersfield University. Can I tell them that the Prime Minister will continue to put Yorkshire at the heart of his long-term...
I'm afraid, Mr. Speaker, the truth is you can't fit all the good things happening into Yorkshire in one question. It's impossible. He could have added the medals won at the Olympics. He could have talked about the cricket team. There's no end of things. But the point is, the long-term economic plan that we've announced for Yorkshire and northern Lincolnshire sets out transport investment, investment in science, helping universities, getting behind the industries that are growing the fastest. That's what another Conservative government would do. Success for Yorkshire, security for families in Yorkshire.
Wilson. Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister confirm that between May 2010 and December 2013 he never once had a conversation with Stephen Green about allegations of tax avoidance by UK-based SBC clients?
We followed every procedure that you should, and this appointment was welcomed by the Labour Party. But more to the point, between 2010 and 2014, we have passed law after law, cracking down on tax evasion, cracking down on aggressive tax avoidance, seeing more prosecutions, all of the things that Labour failed to do over and over again.
Dr. Julian Huppert.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Sixth form colleges like Hills Road and Long Road in Cambridge do an excellent job educating our young people. But they struggle to get by because, unlike school or academy sixth forms, they have to pay VAT over £300,000 each. Will the Prime Minister listen to voices across this House and scrap this tax on learning?
Well, I will look very carefully at what the honourable gentleman says. I know it's important that we try to treat educational institutions fairly, and we all want to see the continued and growth success of our schools and colleges.
Order. Question 15, closed question. Mr. Graham Allen.
Number 15, Mr. Speaker.
The Prime Minister.
We should be proud that in the Magna Carta our country established rules of justice and freedom which 800 years later still inform our constitution and resonate around the world. While there's a long-standing debate over the issue, there are no plans at present for a written constitution.
Mr. Graham Allen.
President, I note that from the Prime Minister. Would he agree, though, that there are unacceptably high levels of voter disengagement, with more people staying at home than voted Labour and Conservative at the last election? Would he commit his government now to prepare an all-party constitutional convention, to give every UK citizen a copy of our society's rulebook, either a statute of the Union or a written constitution, as a part of electors feeling once again that they own our democracy?
Prime Minister.
Obviously, I always look at the right honourable gentleman's suggestions very carefully, because he's made a number of sensible cross-party interventions over recent years, but I have my doubts whether another talking convention is the answer. I think we need to look at some of the constitutional issues that leave people feeling left behind, not least English votes for English laws, and make sure we put them in place. And the disappointment I have with the Labour Party is they are prepared to talk about all-party talks on Wales or on Scotland or on Northern Ireland, but when it comes to empowering English people and making sure they have rights in this House, they're completely absent from the debate.
Mr. Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Article 39 of Magna Carta has in it the origins of our right to trial by jury. Sir Brian Leveson, in a recent report, not satisfied with undermining the right to a free press, also wants to restrict the right to trial by jury. Will my right honourable friend, as long as he is Prime Minister, defend our historic rights?
No, and I'm a great supporter of jury trial. I think it is one of the very important things we have in this country that safeguards people's rights and freedoms, and I don't want to see it reduced.
Order.